I guess it's fitting that Final Four weekend is upon us because, oh boy, did we just see one hell of a pivot from the media Democrat fake news industrial complex. They recognized that the thing with the transgender school shooter really wasn't going well for them. They ran through 4 different approaches in 4 days and they just couldn't figure out a way to turn it into a story that effectively services their preferred narrative. Worse yet, there were some indications that we were about to have a long overdue national reckoning on the subject of transgenderism. And we can't have that. In fact, this whole thing is turning into a real dog shit sandwich for us, and who the hell saw that coming? All we did was totally ignore the dead little kids and obsessively fixate instead on the danger, the supposed danger of reprisals against the transgender community. And now we got all these right-wing transphobe conspiracy theorists crawling up our asses about it. We gotta memory hole this motherfucker immediately. I want this story dead. I want its wife dead. I want its kids dead. I want its dog dead. I want its house burnt to the ground. So get me that Trump indictment, damn it. Pronto. I knew it was a good idea saving it for a special occasion. It's like a fire extinguisher box on the wall. Trump indictment inside. Break glass only in case of badly failed narrative. So yeah, you remember last week when everybody thought the indictment was about to drop? And then a day goes by, and 2 days, and 3 days, and the indictment doesn't drop, and the grand jury goes on vacation. And some commentators on the right actually, naively, hilariously, started wondering out loud if maybe the woke Soros DA thought the better of himself and was reconsidering his course of action. Okay. I mean, have you met the left before? Did you really think there was any chance of them stepping back from the brink of madness and exercising a limiting principle when they've spent the last half-decade showing us repeatedly, unmistakably, that they no longer even understand the concept of limiting principles? And especially not when it has anything to do with the bad orange man. But I want to say a brief word to all the fake journalists and idiot celebrity types who are throwing celebration parties and furiously high-fiving each other over this. By engaging in these displays, you forfeit the right to ever again pretend you have the slightest regard for institutional norms or the rule of law or our democracy or any of the other high-minded terms you people so enjoy vomiting it out because you think it makes you sound sophisticated and erudite. You have no belief system, so stop pretending you do. You have no coherent political worldview, so stop pretending you do. It's the same distinction we were talking about last Tuesday. You just want bad things to happen to the people you don't like. You just want to jack off to pictures of Donald Trump in handcuffs. That is the beginning and the end of your political philosophy. And if I'm Donald Trump, here's how I'm handling this. I refuse to comply. You're going to have to come and get me, boys. Because seriously, what the hell does Trump have to gain by going along with this ridiculous charade? Not really anything from where this reporter is sitting, but you know what Donald Trump knows how to do better than any of the people who seek his political destruction? Make compelling television. And that's the approach he should be taking here, in my view. Why fly up to New York City just to participate in some staged pantomime that's designed to make Alvin Bragg look good and you look bad? Why submit yourself to a made-for-CNN perp walk? Just don't do it, man. Hole yourself up in Mar-a-Lago by yourself. Send your security away, send your Secret Service detail away, and send a note to the Manhattan DA's office that says, I am sitting alone inside my personal domicile. There are cameras and microphones running in every room in the house, and I have no plans to go to New York City or any damn other place. If you wish me to appear to answer these fake charges, you are going to have to come down to Florida, physically remove me from my home by force, and drag me back to New York in chains. And my governor says you won't receive any assistance from him, so best of luck. I hope you have a good legal plan and a good tactical plan. So your move, assholes. If you make him do that and you get it all on video, not only would the resulting footage make for some of the most compelling television in history, but it would probably be Trump's ticket back to the White House. Behold, America, this is what the other side does when they view somebody as a political threat. And if they're willing to do this shit to me, imagine what they're willing to do to you. He wouldn't even need a campaign advertising budget. Just play clips of that video over and over and over again of the jackbooted New York stormtrooper thugs brutalizing an elderly retired man in Florida. Election over, Trump wins. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where prurient and licentious aren't just fancy adjectives, they're a way of life. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. Happy Saturday. Hope you had an agreeable week. I'm your eponymous host and humble servant. And we've got a fun anniversary today. It's a bit of a departure from the types of anniversaries we normally talk about around here, since there are no troop movements and no artillery barrages of which to speak, but it's a chapter in the history of American culture that never really gets discussed, except in a flippant, humorous way, though it probably does warrant more serious discussion and detailed analysis than it receives. What is the thing of which I speak? Well, it's the Hays Code, or more properly, the Motion Picture Production Code, or MPCC, if you like. For it was 89 years ago today, the 1st of April, 1934, when the MPCC came into force, and it remained in force for nearly 3.5 decades. All the way up until 1968, before it was dropped and replaced with the MPAA rating system that remains in effect, albeit with a few minor alterations, right up to the present day. Now, to understand how and why there was a Hays Code, we need to go back a bit farther, all the way to a century ago, the early 1920s, when the motion picture industry was being rocked by a series of sex and murder scandals that threatened to wreck the whole business by turning the public against what they, the public, increasingly viewed as a depraved, morally bankrupt sector of society whose denizens offer nothing of any real value to the nation and the culture. And if that sounds suspiciously like exactly the same way the public views the film industry today, 100 years later in the 2020s, well, there is a reason why the host is always reminding you that nothing is ever new under the sun, including the sun in Hollywood. The first big scandal here was the Fatty Arbuckle rape manslaughter case, which you possibly have heard of before, in which Arbuckle, who was the most famous American comic actor of his day, was alleged to have deprived the actress Virginia Rappy first of her moral virtue and ultimately of her life during an incident that took place on 5 September 1921. And yes, elephant in the room, this is a rape case where the victim's name is only one letter away from being rape. Again, I don't make the news, folks, I just report it. But without putting too fine of a point on it, the allegation was basically that Fatty Arbuckle had forced himself on this young woman in such a violent manner that she suffered a ruptured bladder, which led to acute peritonitis and caused her to perish from her injuries around 48 hours after the incident. For his part, Arbuckle was tried for manslaughter 3 times and got himself 3 acquittals, but obviously his career was ruined, and it was a real black eye for the film industry, which already didn't have that great of a reputation, whether rightly or wrongly, because this was still an era in which actors were seen as only slightly above the level of prostitutes in terms of their reputation for moral turpitude. The other big scandal of the period that dropped at the same time Arbuckle was in the middle of his 2nd or 3rd manslaughter trial was the murder of the director William Desmond Taylor, who was quite a popular and well-regarded filmmaker at that time, but was shot in the back by an unknown assailant in his fashionable Westlake Village bungalow sometime on the evening of Wednesday, the 1st of February, 1922. There was no shortage of lurid details and potential suspects with motive and opportunity, and the case gripped the nation's attention for some weeks. Though it didn't really knock the Arbuckle case out of the headlines, people just started being obsessed with both cases. And they began taking an increasingly dim view of the motion picture business and the people in it. And they began writing to their congressmen and their clergymen to express their concerns. Dear Mr. Congressman, what are you doing to keep my children safe from these motion picture thingies? These things are being made by people who apparently are rapists and killers and so forth, so as a parent, I am concerned about having my kids influenced by such people and the products they make. Imagine if today's parents expressed that same level of concern about actual hardcore pornography. And it was actually the Catholic clergy who became the prime movers behind the idea of policing objectionable content in the movies, either through the auspices of government or by having the industry agree to regulate itself according to a mutually agreed upon set of standards. So everybody kicks their ideas around for a few years, and the studios are more receptive to the concept than you might imagine they would be, because, let's face it, if the ticket buying public views your industry as a cesspit of filth and depravity, your ass is out of business. So you don't have all that much to gain by taking a principled stand for artistic freedom here. So by 1927, there are two lists in circulation. One is a list of don'ts, and the other is a list of be carefuls. And they wound up 7 years later with minimal alteration being the text of the Hays Code when it ultimately went into effect. We will do the don'ts first, and I am directly quoting all of this. 1. Pointed profanity by either title or lip. This includes the words God, Lord, Jesus Christ, unless they be used reverently in connection with proper religious ceremonies, hell, SOB, damn, God, and every other profane and vulgar expression, however it may be spelled. 2, any licentious or suggestive nudity in fact or in silhouette, and any lecherous or licentious notice thereof by other characters in the picture. 3, the illegal traffic in drugs. 4, any inference of sex perversion. 5, white slavery. 6, miscegenation. 7, sex, hygiene, and venereal diseases. 8, scenes of actual childbirth in fact or in silhouette. 9, children's sex organs. 10, ridicule of the clergy. 11, willful offense to any nation, race, or creed. And here are the be carefuls, which are introduced with the following preamble. Quote, be it further resolved that special care be exercised in the manner in which the following subjects are treated, to the end that vulgarity and suggestiveness may be eliminated and that good taste may be emphasized. 1, the use of the flag. 2, international relations. Avoid picturizing in an unfavorable light another country's history, religion, institutions, prominent people, and citizenry. 3, arson. 4, the use of firearms. 5, theft, robbery, safecracking, and the dynamiting of trains, mines, buildings, etc., having in mind the effect which a too detailed description of these may have upon the moron. 6, brutality and possible gruesomeness. 7, technique of committing murder by whatever method. 8, methods of smuggling. 9, third-degree methods. I think that means torture. 10, actual hangings or electrocutions as legal punishment for crime. 11, sympathy for criminals. 12, attitude toward public characters and institutions. 13, sedition. 14, apparent cruelty to children and animals. 15, branding of people or animals. 16, the sale of women or of a woman selling her virtue. 17, rape or attempted rape. 18, first night scenes. 19, man and woman in bed together. 20, deliberate seduction of girls. 21, the institution of marriage. 22, surgical operations. 23, the use of drugs. 24, titles or scenes having to do with law enforcement or law enforcing officers. 25, excessive or lustful kissing, particularly when one character or the other is a heavy. Now, when people talk about the Hays Code today, it's invariably only from one angle, that it was terrible and horrible and censorious and hostile to the filmmaking art, and everything has been so much better since it was got rid of. It's treated with a chuckle and a roll of the eyes, the idea that having less violent or prurient or antisocial content in the movies might provide a benefit to the society at large. And it's taken as a self-evident matter of fact that movies are better without the code than they ever were with it. But is that actually true? If you ask a professional film critic to list their top 20 or 50 or 100 movies of all time, which period do you think is going to be better represented? The 1934 to 68 Hays Code era or the post-68 No Code era? It's almost silly to even ask the question, because anybody who can tell their ass from a hole in the ground knows most of the best films ever made were made between 1934 and 1968. Here's just a brief sampling I threw together in chronological order, selected only from films that were in the top 10 for box office receipts in the year in which they came out. It Happened One Night, Treasure Island, The The Gay Divorcee, Mutiny on the Bounty, David Copperfield, Modern Times, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, A Star is Born, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Gone with the Wind, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, The Wizard of Oz, The Great Dictator, Santa Fe Trail, Sergeant York, They Died with Their Boots On, The Pride of the Yankees, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Casablanca, Meet Me in St. Louis, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, The Outlaw, Sands of Iwo Jima, Little Women, All About Eve, A Streetcar Named Desire, The African Queen, From Here to Eternity, Shane, The Kane Mutiny, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Rear Window, Oklahoma, The 7-Year Itch, The 10 Commandments, Around the World in 80 Days, Bridge on the River Kwai, Peyton Place, South Pacific, Gigi, Ben-Hur, Rio Bravo, North by Northwest, Spartacus, Psycho, Ocean's 11, West Side Story, The Guns of Navarone, La Dolce Vita, The Longest Day, Lawrence of Arabia, The Music Man, To Kill a Mockingbird, Cleopatra, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, The Great Escape, Mary Poppins, Goldfinger, The Pink Panther, The Sound of Music, Dr. Zhivago, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, A Man for All Seasons, The Graduate, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Bonnie and Clyde, The Dirty Dozen, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Bullet, Planet of the Apes, and Rosemary's Freakin' Baby. So to reiterate, during the 34-year period when Hollywood was voluntarily censoring itself and consciously focused its energies on producing content that was family-friendly and sought to affirm and uphold basic traditional social norms and values, the quality of movies didn't suffer. It improved. It improved a whole hell of a lot, in fact. Do you think any studio in today's woke Hollywood, given unlimited resources in terms of budget and schedule and cast and crew, could produce anything that approaches the quality of the 72 pictures I just listed that were made according to the strictures of the Hays Code? Yeah, me either. In fact, if current day Hollywood wanted to save itself, if it wanted to rehabilitate its image in the eyes of the movie-going public, if it wanted to recover some of the public goodwill it used to enjoy and no longer does, they probably would do well to consider readopting some updated version of the Hays Code. Is it something we really ought to laugh at and dismiss out of hand? The idea that the makers of entertainment products should feel a responsibility to affirm and uphold community standards and public morality, rather than trying to reject them or change their parameters? I mean, to all intents and purposes, there is a Hays Code today, but it's like a mirror image code that says you should promote public morality by celebrating all non-normative expressions of human sexuality, and it says every 97-pound female lead girl boss character has to defeat a much larger male opponent in hand-to-hand combat. And no character is allowed to have a mother and a father who are married to each other, unless the dad winds up being some sort of abusive psychopath, then it's okay. Because say what you will about the relative merits of self-imposed artistic censorship, but certain things are inarguable. First, the Hays Code had the desired effect that its creators wanted it to have. By the 50s and the 60s, the film industry enjoyed more public goodwill than it has at any time before or since. And second, it was making better movies than it has at any time before or since. So go ahead and draw your own conclusions about why that is. In the meantime, thank you very much indeed for watching. The host wishes you and your loved ones a delightful, edifying weekend. See you next time. Do not comply. Go Aztecs. Get off my lawn.